This session was part of the conference hosted by Ministry to Muslims. Subscribe, click that bell, and check out all their information in the description below.
All right, so it's good to be with you. I am always hoping I have more time to address a topic and usually find out I have less time, and that's always the case when I come to speak for George. He always tells me I have less time than I hope that I have, and that means that I'm probably going to be going through some of these slides at a good pace. The good news is that this is all recorded. You can go watch it on any number of channels. It'll be on my channel under my name, Anthony Rogers, on George's Ministry to Muslims Network YouTube channel. It'll also be on the Acts 17 Apologetics page of David Wood. So if you miss anything, that's where you'll find it. So this is what I'm calling the Islamic Dilemma. There's probably a better name for it. The reason for this title is because Quranic Dilemma was already taken. The Quranic Dilemma usually is the title we give to the problem created by the Quran's affirmation of the Bible as the Word of God. The Quran says the Bible is the Word of God, that Christians and Jews are to judge by it. And since the Quran contradicts the Bible, that creates a logical conundrum. If the Bible is the Word of God and the Bible contradicts the Quran, then the Quran is not the Word of God. On the other hand, you're on the horns of a dilemma there. So either the Bible is true or it's not true, and either one of those leads to the conclusion that the Quran is false. Right? If the Bible is true, the Quran is false for affirming the Bible because the Bible contradicts the Quran. If the Bible is false, then the Quran is wrong because the Bible confirms the Bible as the Quran confirms the Bible as the Word of God. So that's what we usually call the Quranic dilemma. I'm just calling this the Islamic dilemma because that one's taken. But I consider this to be a huge problem along the same lines as the other one. And it has to do with the fact that the Quran is fundamentally unintelligible. Now, before getting into that, I want to show you that the Quran makes the opposite claim. And it makes this claim repeatedly. And it makes this claim clearly. So even though it's an unintelligible book, the Quran stridently claims to be a clear book. Here's Surah 11:1. I'm only going to read the first translation. For a lot of these, I've given two translations. This is from Mustafa Kitab, which is, interestingly enough, his translation is called the Clear Quran. But it says Alif Lam Ra. Those are letters of the Arabic alphabet. This is a book whose verses are well perfected and then fully explained. It is from the one who is all wise, all aware. The other translation says that the verses are clear in and by themselves and distinctly spelled out. Here, the Study Quran translates it this way: Alif Lam Ra, a book whose signs have been determined, then expounded from the presence of one wise, aware. In the footnote of the Study Quran, it says that the Quran's signs are determined, signifies that the Quran is clear and unambiguous in meaning. So this is a group of Islamic scholars who produced this. They're saying this is what it means. I'm not just reading this into it, and I don't think it's all that hard to see it anyways, but just in case somebody wants to say I'm making it up. The Quran doesn't claim to be a clear book. Here is Surah 12, the very next surah. It says Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the clear book. We have revealed it in Arabic Quran so that you may understand. The other translation says a clear, lucid book so that you may understand. Surah 15:1, Yusuf Ali says these are the ayats. The ayat is a way of referring to the verses of the Quran. These are the ayats of revelation of a Quran that makes things clear. Shabir Ahmed's translation says clear in itself, a plain reading, and a revelation that explains itself. Surah 24:1, again, refers to the verses of the Quran as clear. Surah 27:1-2 says, Ta-Sin. These are verses from the Quran, and it is a clear book offered for guidance and is good news for believers. So notice as I'm going along here that you not only have the statement that the Quran is clear, but it makes reference to the book as clear and to its verses as clear. That'll be important. It's saying that the parts and the whole are clear. The whole as well as the parts of the book are clear. Surah 28:1-2. Ta, Sin, Mim, letters of the Arabic alphabet again. These are the verses of the clear and clarifying book. So it's a book that is clear and that clarifies. Surah 41:1-3 says Ha, Mim, again, Arabic letters, a revelation from God, in Arabic, Allah. the most gracious, the most merciful, a book whose revelations are well expounded, an Arabic Quran for people who possess knowledge. Surah 41, 1 through 3, in Yusuf Ali's commentary, it says, here it, the Quran, is described mainly with reference to its subject matter. It brings the message of grace and mercy. 2, it is not merely a book of dark sayings, but everything is explained clearly from various points of view. 3, it's in Arabic, the language of Muhammad's contemporaries, the language of the people among whom it was first promulgated, and therefore easily intelligible to them if they take the trouble to understand. So there you have a Muslim scholar saying these verses say the Quran is clear. Surah 655 says, thus do we make distinct the communication so that the way of the guilty may become clear. Surah 7, 172 through 174. This is a long one, but I want to read it to you. I'm going to come back to it along with some of these other passages in a moment. But it says, O prophet, so the prophet, whoever that is being addressed, says, remind mankind about the incident when your Lord brought into existence the offspring from the loins of Adam and his descendants, virtually each single individual of mankind, and made them testify about themselves. Allah asked them, am I not your Lord? They replied, yes, we bear witness that you are. This we did lest you, mankind, should say on the day of resurrection, we were not aware of this fact that you are our Lord and that there will be a day of judgment, or lest you should say, our forefathers started the practice of shirk, that's associating partners with Allah, and we just followed because they're descendants. Will you then destroy us on account of following the sin committed by those wrongdoers? Thus do we spell out our revelation so that you might return to the right way. So again, Quran is a clear book. Its verses are clear. It's spelled out. It's clear. It clarifies. You getting the impression that the Quran is claiming that it's clear, or that the author of the Quran is claiming that it's clear? Similarly, Surah 1689 it says the Quran is a book that explains everything clearly. Surah 16, 102, later in the Psalm. So it's Surah, not Psalm. It's not just at the beginning of certain surahs, chapters of the Quran, that it claims to be a clear book, but even within the chapters. So you're often told at the beginning of a chapter and then reminded somewhere along the way in a chapter. So here in 16, 102 through 103, it says the tongue of him whom they hint, meaning certain people were saying that Muhammad was getting his revelations from somebody else, not really from God. And the response of the speaker, the alleged speaker of the Quran, says the tongue of him, that person, of whom they're talking about, he's not an Arab. Well, this is in clear Arabic tongue. So they're accusing Muhammad of getting this from somebody else who doesn't even speak clear Arabic, but Muhammad does. So again, the Quran is clear. Surah 17:12, we have made everything clear in detail. Surah 20, 113, clearly, we've sent it down in Arabic and clearly proclaimed in it some of the warnings so that they may take heed. Here is Anis Sudan's Quran translation. He says, the Quran has certainly been sent down by the fosterer of the worlds. The trustworthy spirit came down with it on your heart, that you may be one of the warners in plain Arabic language. Now, I haven't cited every single verse in the Quran where it claims to be clear. Here's a list of all of them. Here's the ones I quoted. So you can see that I haven't even given you a third of the references where it uses the word clear, plain, distinct, or so forth. That doesn't even include passages which entail that notion, such as when the Quran is called a light, right? So there are any number of other verses I could have included here. But certainly what I have shown you demonstrates that the author of the Quran wanted to claim that the Quran is clear. Well, here is Yasser Qadi, one of the most famous clerics in America. He wrote a book called An Introduction to the Sciences of the Quran. He's going to summarize it for us. Here's what Yasser Qadi says on page 288 or 208 and 209 of his book. In these verses, he's just referring to two of them, 10:1 and 11:1, Allah is saying that the whole Quran is a clear, perfect book which acts as a criterion between good and evil. And then he goes on to quote Al-Tabari to the same effect, an earlier Islamic scholar. Well, what are some problems with this? Now, this is all just setup. I'm not yet to what I consider to be the mother of all problems with this claim. I just want to show you just the verses that I've read about the Quran being a clear book are riddled with problems that challenge this claim. Notice in Surah 11:1, you all might have been wondering what's the business with those letters at the beginning. Look at the bolded part there. This is from the study Quran, the footnote. I read this earlier. The Quran signs are determined, or that they're determined, signifies that the Quran is clear and unambiguous in meaning. But no, notice the first part of that. It says, I don't know why that last part is all yellow, but it says the Arabic letters Alif, Lam, and Ra at the start of Surah 11:1 are among the separated letters found at the beginning of 29 surahs of the Quran. There's 114 chapters or surahs of the Quran. 29 of them begin with these letters. What do they mean? Well, look what it says here. Whose ultimate meaning most commentators attest is known only to God. So the very verses that tell you this is a clear book, its verses are clear, it clarifies everything. We don't know what they mean. Only Allah knows what they mean. And it's not just the study Quran that says this. Here is Yusuf Ali's commentary on this. He says certain surahs have certain initials prefixed to them, which are called the abbreviated letters. A number of conjectures have been made as to their meaning. Opinions are divided as to the exact meaning of each particular letter or combination of letters, and it's agreed that only Allah knows their exact meaning. Here is a page or 2 pages from Yasser Qadhi's book on the sciences of the Quran. And notice I have circled there, I know you can't read all that, but I have circled 12 things. Those are the 12 explanations that he's chosen to include in his book that Muslims have given to explain these letters. 12 different interpretations. And on the page prior to this, he tells you these are only some of them. So Muslim scholars admit that only Allah knows the meaning of those letters. And Yasser Qadhi gives us an example of just how ambiguous this matter is. He gives you 12 possible interpretations out of others that he could have mentioned. Well, notice this as well. This is Surah 11:1 again. Notice it's a verse that has these letters. That's not what I want you to focus on now. It says, this is a book whose verses are well perfected and then fully explained. It is from the one who is all wise, all aware. What's the problem with that? Well, this is, first of all, the central claim of Islam is that Allah is one and that other religions are guilty of shirk, compromising his oneness. They misrepresent Christianity to put us into the same category as others who are guilty of shirk. They say we believe in multiple gods. But the Quran claims to be from one God. So it says it's from the one who's all wise, all aware. Well, here's another or several verses where it speaks of Allah revealing this clear book. Alif Lam Ra, Surah 12:1. These are the verses of the clear book. We have revealed it, an Arabic Quran. I thought it was from the one. Who is the we? Who's the we that sent this down? You see it again in Surah 24:1. This is a chapter which we have sent down and decreed. Surah 6:55, thus do we make distinct the communication so that the way of the guilty may become clear. Again, these are all part of the clear verses of the Quran. First, these unintelligible letters. Now, Allah switching from speaking in the singular to speaking in the plural. Here's a couple of other examples from these clear references. Surah 17:12, Surah 21:13. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, that's not overly problematic. Maybe you've even heard, hey, this is just a plural of majesty. Well, of the many interpretations Muslims have given of this. Why? Because it's ambiguous. The Quran doesn't interpret it. The Quran doesn't tell you it's a plural of majesty. Even worse for Muslims is the fact that the plural of majesty wasn't even a literary convention at the time of Muhammad. If you look at the works of people like M.A.S. Abdel Halim, who's a Muslim scholar, he'll point out that in his writings on iltifat, which is the way of referring to the Quran's weird habit of moving back and forth between singular, plural, first person, third person. You can't often tell who's speaking and when it changes. It's very dizzying and confusing. And he points out that at the time the Quran was written, there was no such thing as a plural of majesty in Arabic. Among other translations, some Muslims will say it's Allah speaking to the angels. Others say it's Allah referring to his signs. Others say that it's a way of Allah showing that he transcends the categories of personality. Muhammad Assad gave that interpretation. I have a whole series of articles written on this, which you can read. It's a 50-page article, 5 parts on answeringislam.org under my name there. So if you go there, you can find the whole discussion of this. The point I'm making now is just, this isn't clear. What is this talking about? And it's going to get even worse. Oops. I wonder if I sent myself an old version of this. Anyways, here's, notice it moves from we to third. Well, this is just a way of me indicating first person and third person. What is this all about? It says, we made the sign of the night dark, and we made the sign of the day bright, so that you might look for your Lord's bounty, and that you might work out the number of years and do reckoning, and we have made everything clear in detail. So this we is speaking about your Lord. Whoever the author or whoever the speaker is supposed to be here refers to someone as your Lord, the person he's talking to. Now, you might say, well, a person can speak in the third person. Well, the way the Quran does this ends up being so odd that it's not just Christians, it's Muslims who look at this and say, we can't make heads or tails of half of this. Look, for example, at this passage. This is Surah 7, O Prophet, so somebody's being addressed. I don't know why this computer's doing that. O Prophet, remind mankind about the incident when your Lord, wait, who's talking? It's supposed to be Allah who's speaking throughout the Quran, but he's telling this prophet to remind people of the incident when your Lord brought into existence the offspring from the loins of Adam and his descendants and made them testify about themselves. Allah asked them, who's talking? Who's talking here? That's not overly clear, and it's even worse in other passages. I've just chosen the passages where Allah claims to be speaking clearly. Okay, so we have a number of problems. By the way, who is Allah speaking to? I've mentioned, at least this last passage I mentioned, O Prophet. Well, who is that? Muslims will claim it's Muhammad. Where does the Quran tell us that? The name Muhammad is only mentioned 4 times in the Quran, and those passages don't tell us that the entire thing is from him. Right? Only 4 times is he mentioned, which, by the way, it's dwarfed by the number of times Jesus is mentioned in the Quran. Jesus is mentioned at least 25 times. In fact, Pharaoh's mentioned more than this Muhammad figure. But many times in the Quran, the word Muhammad doesn't even appear to clearly be a proper name and looks more like a title. It means praised one. Many scholars have argued that this writing that it became the Quran was originally a Christian liturgical source that somebody took over and sort of adapted to their own ends, to cater to the ends of their attempt to make a religion and get dominance over Arabs and so forth. In any case, the fact is, we don't know who this person is that's being addressed in these places half the time. Say the hallowed spirit sent it down from thy Lord. Thy, who's thy? Who is thy in this statement? And it says, people will say it's only a mortal who teaches him. Who's him? It doesn't tell us that. Now, Muslims can say, well, we know this from our sources. We have hadith narrations, traditions, going back to Muhammad and his companions. But notice what they have to do to say that. They have to go outside the book that claims to be clear in itself, exhaustively detailed, explaining everything. Again, I'm only scratching the surface of this sort of thing in the Quran. It's just a nightmare. All over the place, this book is a confusing book. But that doesn't even get to the heart of the matter. This is what I call the mother of all problems. Now, I have to set it up here a little bit. Enter the Christians of Najran. In the life of Muhammad, written by Ibn Yitzhak, it's the earliest extant biography of Muhammad, and actually, we only have it in a recent. It's late, but it's the best Muslims have when it comes to a biography of Muhammad. And according to this biography, a delegation of Christians came to Muhammad from Najran, which is in Arabia to the south. And prior to this, so Muhammad allegedly became a prophet in 610, AD 610, and he had been prophesying, again, these are their words, I don't think he was a prophet, he didn't prophesy, but all the way up until 632, he was claiming that the Quran was a clear book. Okay? He died only a few months after this delegation of Christians came to him. Now, Muhammad's interactions with Christians was actually very negligible. There wasn't a lot of interaction with Christians prior to this point. He had a couple of people that he knew. His cousin Waraka early on was a Christian, but there weren't Jewish or there weren't Christian groups in Mecca and Medina. There were individuals that were occasionally around, but not somebody from whom he could get a lot of information. Really, this delegation was the one when Muhammad had the most sustained contact with informed Christians. So you'll see why this is significant in a moment. I know you can't read this either, but this is the section of the biography of Muhammad. And it says, a deputation from the Christians of Najran came to the apostle, meaning they came to Muhammad. Here it is. I blow it up a little bit. And then skipping along, it just, after that, it has a bunch of names and it tells you who these people were and what their position was in the context of Najran. But this other part here says they were Christians according to the Byzantine rite, though they differed among themselves in some point. So that just refers to their liturgical approach and so forth. Byzantine rite Christians had a particular liturgy and so forth. There's more to that, but they were Christians according to the Byzantine rite, though they differed among themselves in some points, saying he is God. They're talking about Jesus, and he is the Son of God, and he is the third person of the Trinity, which is the doctrine of Christianity. They argue that he is God because he used to raise the dead and heal the sick and declare the unseen and make clay birds and then breathe into them so that they flew away. That last part isn't from the Bible. It's from an apocryphal source. But this, you notice even in the account of what Christians believed, it's obvious that there's a little bit of confusion, not on the part of the Christians per se, but the Muslims who are recounting what they understood from the Christians. Because I hear this all the time. I'll talk to Muslims and others, and then when I hear them repeat back what I've said, I think, that's not what I said at all. That doesn't even come close to what I said. But you'll see another more glaring example here in just a moment. But it goes on, it says, they argue that he's the Son of God and that they say he had no known father and he spoke in the cradle. Again, that's an apocryphal account. And this is something that no child of Adam has ever done. They argue that he is the third of three and that God says, we have done, we have commanded. See that? The God is the third of three. Now, what's possibly going on here is that these Christians of Najran are pointing out to Muhammad things that are found in his revelation. They're saying, look, you're claiming to be a prophet, and here your own book has Jesus raising the dead, bringing clay birds to life. He's called, it says he has no father, no earthly father. So who is his father? It may just be that they're pointing out, this is what your revelations say. But notice here, because this is quite obviously stuff from the Quran, they argue that he's the third of three and that God says we have done, we have commanded, right? Let me blow that up. We have created and we have decreed. And they say, if he were one, he would have said, I have done, I have created, and so on. But he is he and Jesus and Mary. So there's an obvious misrepresentation of what the Christians were telling them. You know, the Byzantine Rite Christians believe in the doctrine of the Trinity. Whatever else you might say about their views, they didn't deny that, and they didn't put Mary in the place of the Spirit. Well, so this is the account. We're told these Christians came and they're challenging Muhammad. Now, often, Muhammad would have a quick answer to people. He would fire back with this or that thing. And but often, you could tell when Muhammad was stumped, because sometimes he would get red in the face. You read the hadith material, it'll talk about Muhammad getting red in the face. Other times, it'll talk about Muhammad just coming up with some odd answer and people just sort of buying it and sort of adding a bit of a threat, if you will, to it. But in this case, it's very interesting. When the Christians in Najran are asking these questions, and I could read more of this, but I'm going to skip it for the sake of time. But when the Christians in Najran put these questions to Muhammad, we're told that Muhammad was silent. They asked Muhammad all these questions. Who's his father? How did he do these things? Why does Allah speak in the plural in the Quran? By the way, the Christians of Najran spoke Arabic, right? They're Arabic Christians. Why didn't they say, oh, obviously, it's plural of majesty, right? Don't they know their own language? They know their own language. They didn't for a moment think it was a plural of majesty. There was no such thing. But what do Muslims tell you today? Well, what would we expect Muhammad to say in response to this? Well, first of all, What we're told in the Sirah of Ibn Yitzhak, what we're told is that Muhammad, instead of replying, got silent. He went dead cold silent. And it wasn't until later, the next day, that he came back with a response to the Christians of Najran. Here's where it's about to get good. This is Ibn Kathir's tafsir on the Quran. This is his section on chapter 3, which is Surah Al-Imran. And it says, Surah Al-Imran, Surah 3, was revealed in Al-Medina, meaning this is after Muhammad had moved from Mecca to Medina, and as evident by the fact that the first 83 ayat verses in it relate to the delegation from Najran that arrived in Al-Medina on the 9th year of Hijrah, 632. Right? So the first 80 verses of Surah 3 were revealed as a response to these Christians. So what were the questions? The questions were, what do you say about Jesus? How did he do these things? Who was his father? Why does Allah speak in the plural? On all of this, until he gets this alleged revelation and comes back with it. The first 80 verses of Surah 3. Well, you could search the first 80 verses of Surah 3. By the way, this is Sayudi's book on the occasions, or there's a whole science called the reasons and meaning, the reasons why a certain surah or chapter was revealed. And this is how we know that Surah 3 was supposedly revealed as a response to the Najrani Christians. So Sayudi tells us the same thing. And he quotes numerous authorities, by the way, that even precede him. So Ibn Kathir, the tafsir I just read, Al-Sayuti, these other authorities that Sayudi is quoting, they're all saying these verses were revealed as a response to the Najrani Christians. So what is it that Surah 3 reveals to us? Well, there are a few things that look like they might be responses to the questions that the Najrani Christians asked, but there are certain things that get no answer from Surah 3 apart from Surah verse 7. Here's what Surah 3 verse 7 says. Now I want you to notice this. Remember, wait, before I read that to you, I know you were all excited, weren't you? Before I read that to you, remember, Muhammad has been saying for 22 years that his book is clear. It clarifies everything. It's exhaustively detailed. It explains everything. Now, in the final months of his life, these Christians come and the gig is up. Muhammad has a falling out with himself. Look what Surah 3:7 says. He it is who hath revealed unto thee, that Muhammad there is in parentheses. It's not really there in the Arabic. So it's, again, we don't know who he's talking to. Right? He it is who hath revealed unto thee the scripture wherein are clear revelations. They are the substance of the book, and others which are unclear. But those in whose hearts is doubt forsooth that which is unclear, seeking to cause dissension by seeking to explain it. None knoweth its explanation save Allah. And those who are of sound instruction say, we believe therein, the whole is from our Lord. But only men of understanding really heed. So here, suddenly we're told the Quran is not, as a whole, a clear book. It is a mixture of clear and unclear. That is not what Muhammad had been saying up to this point. Only now is Muhammad suddenly saying that. But now think about it. This is in response to questions like, why does Allah speak in the plural? Muslims today confidently say, oh, it's the plural of majesty. One, that didn't exist. But two, it's not the answer their prophet gave. This is the answer their prophet gave. Oh, there's some things that are unclear in the book. Some things you just can't understand. Only Allah knows what they mean. Right? Oh, but it gets a good bit worse. How do we know what verses are clear and what verses are unclear? Notice that it says, those in whose heart is doubt forsooth that which is unclear, seeking dissension by seeking to explain it. So if you're seeking to explain the verses that are unclear, then you have a heart that has doubt in it. In fact, really what it says is, it tells us that you have a diseased heart. So you really need to know which verses are unclear, right? Otherwise, how do you know that you're not trying to understand a verse that's unclear? And if you're trying to understand a verse that's unclear, then you've got a diseased heart according to this. And you're striving in vain to understand it because only Allah knows its meaning. So does Allah ever tell us in the Quran which verses are clear and which verses are unclear? We're about to find out this verse is not very clear, by the way. It's going to get really, really bad. Here is Ahmed van Denver, not the best picture, best I could find. He wrote a book called Ulum al-Quran. It's the same sort of thing as the book that Yasser Qadi wrote. It's on the sciences of the Quran, how we got the Quran, what is its nature, how do we interpret it. In his book, he says the word muhammad, that's the word translated clear, is derived from the root ukima, which means to decide between two things. It's a verbal noun in the plural, meaning judgments, decisions, and in technical language refers to all clearly decided verses of the Quran, mostly those concerning legal rulings, but also to other clear definitions such as between truth and falsehood, etc. This is what is meant by general muhammad. Then it defines mutashabihat. In technical language, it refers to those verses of the Quran, the meanings of which are not clear or not completely agreed upon. Now go back to this and notice it says at the end, none knoweth its explanation save Allah. So there are clear verses, there are unclear verses. It literally means clear and unclear, because some Muslims will play a game here. Some will say that it's clear and allegorical. The word's not allegorical, it's unclear. There's an intentional contrast here, and only Allah knows the meaning of these verses. And those who try to explain the unclear verses have diseased hearts, right? They're seeking to cause division. Here it is. Well, it says in this translation, those in whose heart is doubt pursue, forsooth, that which is unclear, seeking dissension. Others say diseased heart. Here again is von Dempfer. He tells you what mukhama, clear, means, something of which knowledge was desired, something with only one dimension, something sufficient in meaning, requiring no further explanation. Mutashabihat, unclear, means something known to Allah only, something with more than one dimension, something requiring further explanation. So that's the basic meaning of these things. I don't think this thing's going a little weird. Here is, I believe this is from, I'm not doing that weird stuff that's happening. The computer's, for some reason, acting weird with my slides. Okay, so actually, let me go back here real quick to this passage. Notice it says, they are the substance of the book, the clear revelations, okay? That phrase in Arabic is actually al-Kitab, which means the mother of the book. So the clear verses are called the mother of the book. Now, what does that expression mean? Well, I mean, a mother, you can think through it. There's possibilities, but one the idea is that mothers are the ones who give birth to children. Offspring come from them. So it would seem to suggest that these clear verses, in some sense, are the mothers of these unclear verses, or at least of the book. The book itself is a product of these clear verses, or these are the root of the rest of the book. But there's actually a number of candidates in Islamic history for what the mother of the book is. This is from, I believe, Yusuf Ali. Hold on, let me make sure here. Yeah, this is Yusuf Ali's commentary on the Quran. He says, broadly speaking, it may be divided into two portions, not given separately but intermingled. That is, the nucleus or foundation of the book, literally the mother of the book, and two, the part which is not well-established meaning. So there's two parts to the book, clear and unclear. The clear stuff is the mother of the book. So what does that refer to? And by the way, at the end there, he says the final meaning is known only to Allah of the unclear stuff. Here's a statement I got from Spencer. I'm just throwing this in here because it's new and I want people to go out and get Spencer's Critical Quran. But he says the assertion that no one knows its interpretation except Allah is striking. Why would Allah include material in his clear revelation of guidance to human beings that only he knows the meaning of? What sense does that make, right? Why reveal it if you can't understand it, if it's unintelligible? There's no clear answer to that, but absolute acceptance of the unclear along with the clear is enjoined upon the believers. This has helped to engender in Islamic culture a certain tendency to avoid questioning the Quran or pondering its injunctions critically. So Spencer asks a great question. Why would Allah even include this? What's the point? It's one thing to say that some things are harder to understand, and you got to work at them, that's fine. But to say that certain things are unclear and so unclear that you can't understand them, only Allah knows their meaning, what's the point of that? And how do you then navigate this book if it's telling you that some things are unclear in it. And if you try to understand their meanings, it's because you've got a diseased heart. And the book doesn't even tell you which verses are off limits. Wouldn't you be terrified to read this thing? In fact, isn't that the case with Muslims? If you've interacted with Muslims, you know they often defer to their scholars. Oh, the scholars say this, the scholars say that. Well, the scholars say a bunch of stuff. You know why? Because the Quran's not a clear book. So they're all over the place. But they're afraid, the average Muslim's afraid to interpret the book. They have to defer to their scholar. Well, here's one thing that the mother of the book could refer to. Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha means Surah 1. That's the first chapter of the Quran, the opener. This is what Surah 15:86 through 87 says. Notice this. It says, surely your Lord is the master creator, all-knowing. We have certainly granted you the 7 oft-repeated verses and the great Quran. Now, Surah Al-Fatiha has 7 verses in it. It's recited often by Muslims. You check the commentators, they'll all tell you this refers to Surah Al-Fatiha. Well, here's Ibn Kathir's tafsir on Surah Al-Fatiha. So I just read Surah 15. Here is Ibn Kathir's tafsir, his commentary on Surah 1. He says, this surah is called Al-Fatiha, that is the opener of the book, the surah with which prayers are begun. It is also called al-Kitab, the mother of the book, according to the majority of scholars. Now, in case you're not catching what this would entail, if this is what mother of the book means, let me spell it out for you. Muhammad had been saying for 22 years that his book is clear. It explains everything, the book, the verses, it's all clear. A couple of, a little delegation of Christians comes up and Muhammad now suddenly says it's not clear, but the clear verses are the mother of the book. Surah Al-Fatiha? If that refers to Surah Al-Fatiha, guess how many verses of this book that has 114 chapters, some of which are quite long, the book ends up being this thick. 7 verses of that book are clear on this interpretation. But what if it doesn't mean that? Now it just gets even worse, because now the verse that's supposed to be telling you how to approach the book, some things are clear, some things are unclear, ends up being unclear. But there are other candidates for what it means to refer to the mother of the book. He goes on telling us why it's called Surah, or why it's called al-Kitab. I wasn't sure if I included Al-Qurtubi in here, but here's Al-Qurtubi. He says, in his commentary on Surah Al-Fatiha, a Tirmidhi related from Ubay bin Ka'b that the Messenger of Allah said, Allah has not revealed anything like the mother of the book, either in the Torah or the Gospel. It is the 7 matani, oft repeated. It is divided between me and my slave, and it goes on. So here's another Islamic authority going back to Muhammad. Even Abbas, the cousin of Muhammad, is saying this is what it refers to, or this is what the mother of the book is. So the Grand Quran, that for 22 years is nothing but a clear book, suddenly is reduced to 7 verses that are clear. And by the way, those verses aren't all that clear either. If I had time, I'd go through them. They're not all that clear. The problems with this just continue to multiply. But here's another possibility. This is Surah 1339. It says, Allah removes from memory what he thinks proper and keeps protected or intact in memory what he thinks proper. And with him is the ultimate source of Al-Kitab. Literally, with him is the mother of the book. So the mother of the book is something that is with him. And here's another reference to this in Surah 43:4, preserved in the divine tablet securely with us. It is majestic and full of wisdom. So Muslims think that the Quran is ultimately an eternal book. And we do see some correlation between this phrase, mother of the book, and this preserved tablet that exists. It's pre-temporal, exists outside of creation, or at least precedes creation. If this is what the mother of the Quran is referring to, then only part of the Quran actually comes from that preserved tablet. The whole book is not eternal. Because remember, it's the clear verses that are the mother of the book. If the mother of the book refers to this preserved tablet, well, then only that part of it is part of this pre-creation book. What's even worse, though, is that this preserved tablet is literally said to have been created in various Islamic sources. If you look towards the bottom of this, it says, then he said, "Do you know what the mother of the book is?" I said, "Allah and his messenger know better." He said, "It is a book that Allah wrote before he created the heavens." So this is something Allah wrote before he created the heavens. That doesn't sound eternal. It's old, but it's not eternal. But it's Orthodox Islamic theology that the Quran is Allah's speech. His literal speech must be eternal. So if the Quran is really the clear verses of the mother of the book and it's rooted in this, well then the Quran, only part of it comes from this book, and that book is not eternal. This just strikes at the heart of Islam. But it also strikes at the claim that this verse is clear. The verse is not clear. Now, I could keep going on with this, and I think I'm probably coming near to the end of my time constraints due to certain less than nice forces. But let me point this out. One of the things. Oh, I guess I'm being given the cue that I've got 10 more minutes. One of the things that we're told by most Muslim authorities is that the clear stuff relates to matters pertaining to Sharia. Now, the Quran doesn't say this, but I'm going to grant this to them for a moment. They'll say that it pertains to matters of Sharia, that's Islamic rulings or laws, governing, what happens if you've married a prepubescent girl and you divorce her. How long do you have to wait before she can be married again? You might be thinking just the notion of that is repugnant, and you're right. But that's taught in the Quran, and so that's part of the Sharia. So that sort of stuff is clear. It's other stuff that isn't so clear, which would include stuff like what? What we means, But look at how many times we is used in the Quran. It's hundreds of times. Now, in my view, if you read my article on that, you'll see that I believe Muhammad overheard Jews, and at least Jews, reciting the Old Testament where God does speak in the plural. As Christians, we have no difficulty understanding that. It's the triune God. Muhammad didn't believe in a triune God. So he picked up this language thinking, oh, this must be how God speaks or something. But then when he was pressed on it, well, what's it all mean? He was suddenly without words. I don't know what it means. Well, and we see Muhammad doing that often. He often picked up things from Jews and Christians like a dog picks up fleas. I mean, he didn't know where these things came from. He didn't know what they meant. And he was fine until somebody would ask him a question, and then suddenly he'd fall apart. Well, but it's not just the we passages. I was just using that for illustrative purposes. All throughout the Quran, you end up having statements that don't fall into Sharia, and you have to ask, what do these things mean? Well, if the clear verses refer to what is counted as Sharia law, well, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that's just not clear. In fact, let me give you a verse. I'll end on this. Surah 4, 157. This is the one verse that makes explicit reference to the crucifixion of Jesus. It is for this reason that Muslims not only reject what Christians believe to be the significance of Christ's crucifixion, but even reject the event of the crucifixion. Right? From our perspective, as Christians, we don't just have this belief that Jesus was crucified. Our belief as Christians is that he was crucified for our sins. Right? That's the gospel, right? And he rose again for our justification. But a person could know the facts. They don't have to deny the facts. It wouldn't make them Christians, but they can affirm that Jesus died by crucifixion. But Muslims don't even go that far. Why? Because they think the Quran says that Jesus was not crucified. Surah 4, 157 says, they say in boast, we have killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, but they killed him not nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them. And then it says, they're in doubt and so forth. They're subject to conjecture. They have no clear knowledge about this matter. Notice it makes reference to others being in the dark and not really knowing the truth. Would you know that verse itself has been disputed by Muslims throughout history? This verse, on the basis of which they reject one of the most certain facts of the first century. I mean, if you look at the scholarship on, maybe you don't know about this, the scholarship on Jesus, even unbelieving scholarship, they don't question whether Jesus was crucified. You've got these really weird fringe scholars that might call in question Jesus' existence. but they're just sort of laughed out of the guild, the historical, area of study. But scholars that are familiar with the material all say, yeah, he died by crucifixion. We have no question about this. Well, here's Muslims rejecting that most certain fact on the grounds that the Quran says this, and the verse isn't clear. Let me give you an example of why it's not so clear. When it says, they say and boast, it's supposed to be talking about the Jews. They say and boast, we have killed Christ Jesus, but they have neither killed him nor crucified him. Some Muslims take that to mean that because the Quran elsewhere says, when somebody's killed, like if a Muslim's killed in battle, don't say that the enemy did it, say that Allah is the one who took them. It's in other words, not giving glory to the enemy, it's Allah who's ultimately in control. That's something the Quran says. So some Muslims have said, all this verse is saying is that the Jews did not have the power to kill Jesus. In fact, I remember hearing, here's a sentence. Think about this sentence. If I say, I didn't say that you took my wallet, right? That might sound clear to you, but it's really not. What if I say, I didn't say that you took my wallet, but he did, Or what if I say, I didn't say you took my wallet, he did. Or I didn't say you took my wallet, you borrowed it. I mean, there's all these different ways you could understand that. I didn't say you took my wallet, you just took the money in my wallet. What some people think is the emphasis is placed on the Jews here, that the Jews didn't do it. Rather, it was the Romans or it was Allah. But there's also debate among Muslims what it means to say that it was made to appear to them like he was crucified. The Jews certainly thought Jesus was crucified, didn't they? They thought he was crucified, so who made it appear to them? Who made it unclear, by the way? Made it appear as if Jesus was crucified. Who's in the business of making things look unclear? Well, we know Allah is. And some Muslims have said that that's what was happening. Allah made somebody else look like Jesus. Some say it was Judas because of his treachery. Others would say it was one of the noble disciples offering to die for Jesus. I mean, there's all these different interpretations among Muslims. There's a whole book. There's books, actually, not just one, but there's books written on this topic. I could give you a reference afterwards. But it's not clear. And you check the commentators, they'll tell you it's not clear. And yet the verse is charging other people with being in doubt. By the way, the verse is not even historically accurate. What sense does it make to say, they, the Jews, said and boast, we have killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary? We have killed Christ Jesus? Did the Jews think Jesus was the Christ? Why would any Jew say that? The Jews rejected Jesus because they didn't think he was the Christ, right? The Quran has the Jews saying, we killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, in boast. Why would they boast about that? That was their whole hope. They rejected Jesus once they figured out he wasn't really what they thought was supposed to be true of the Messiah. And so here's a verse just riddled with ambiguity, and that by the admission of Muslims. And it's not even it's not Sharia. It's not a verse about Sharia law. It's a verse about something central to the Christian faith, something about Jesus. So what is clear in this book? I don't know, honestly. According to at least a number of commentators, Surah Al-Fatiha is clear, first 7 verses of the Quran. I don't think Surah Al-Fatiha is clear. By the way, Muslims aren't even agreed on how to properly punctuate Surah 3:7. Some Muslims will say when it says no one knows their meanings except for Allah, there should be a comma there, and then it should say, and those who are rooted in knowledge. So in other words, Allah knows the meanings, and certain special scholars know the meaning. That's a later interpretation. In any case, though, it's only one of a number of interpretations. How just utterly destructive this is. This book is clear, it's clear, it's clear, it's clear. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, it's still clear. Year 6, it's clear. Year 7, it's clear. Year 22, it's clear. Hi, Christians from Najran. Oh, well, you see, the answer to that is this book's not clear, right? But there are at least 7 verses that are clear, or maybe some stuff on Sharia. Well, maybe this verse isn't that clear. What's the mother of the book? We don't know what the mother of the book. I mean, it's just, and I could go on and on with this. It's hopelessly bad. And I wouldn't even need this verse to know that the Quran's an unclear book. I mean, again, I gave you an example of Surah 4:157. There's another passage, Surah 17. Well, actually, one of my favorites, I believe it's Surah 96, where it says, "Who are enwrapped, arise and warn." You might think, what does that mean? Oh, actually, I didn't tell you about one of my remember that verse I was reading earlier where it says, remind them, Surah 7, remind them how Allah brought out of Adam's descendants from Adam. Maybe you heard that a certain way. Maybe you heard that as saying Allah created Adam and then his descendants were born or something like that. If you check the commentators, that's not at all what the verse is talking about. Here's what it's really talking about. It means that Allah created Adam, and then Allah stroked Adam's back with his hand and brought out of Adam's back his descendants. So he extracted the seed out of Adam. By the way, for those of you who know the Quran, why would Allah stroke Adam's back in order to get the seed out? Because according to the brilliant author of the Quran, semen proceeds from between the backbone and the ribs, right? So here's Allah extracting the seed of Adam from him before we were ever born, and he caused everybody, all of you, stood before Allah at the beginning of time, and he said, I'm your Lord, so that when everybody was born into the world, they would all know that Allah is the true God and nobody would ever have any excuse. That's the Islamic view of saying that everybody knows Allah and is born into the world as a Muslim. That's what Surah 7 is talking about. Were any of you thinking that when I read it? Perfect example that this is not a clear book. None of you thought that Allah gave the first back rub in history and extracted from Adam his semen and then put them all back in there, right, so that they could eventually be born. Like, none of you were thinking that. And that happens over and over again in the Quran. Read the Quran. What's this saying? Read the commentary. Something entirely different. This is not a clear book. And so I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope that you'll use this in your discussions with Muslims. Muslims make boasts about their religion that are far from true. I'd love to talk about, in fact, I'm going to talk about Allah tomorrow. They pretend that their doctrine of God is clear in contrast to your confused belief in the Trinity. Oh, let me assure you, their doctrine of God is not clear, not any more clear than their book is. Neither are clear. This book is an ambiguous book, and it's one of many reasons why people ought to reject it.
This session was part of the conference hosted by Ministry to Muslims. Subscribe, click that bell, and check out all their information in the description below. May the Lord keep you and bless you.